Housing Sector Podcast. Episode number 14, Greg Reed, CEO, Places for People.
Hello, Greg. Thank you very much indeed for joining me today. Greg, a little bit about yourself and your background, if you may, as a bit of an introduction.
Yes, well, people will probably notice right away that this is not a British accent. So I'm from Delaware on the East Coast in the U.S. I was raised in a small town, found my way to the U.K. in the year 2000. My wife, who's American, we really enjoyed it. So we ended up getting our citizenship, we've never really looked back. I came to the UK to do banking, retail banking. My education was as a lawyer, and then I had a finance degree. And then as happens when you get to be my age, you go through different stages, and and then this is the not finished product.
Yeah. So how long have you been with Places for People?
Joined Places for People in December of 2021, taking over from David Cowens, who'd been there, I think, 25 years. So, a long time chief exec, as often happens in the sector. And being outside the sector, which I guess we'll talk about in a little bit probably. But I was sort of brought in my immediately previous role. I took a little bit of time off. Was with HomeServe. So it's a big repairs and insurance business that had a little bit of issues before I joined. And I was part of the team brought in to sort of turn things around, especially from an FCA perspective, which their perspective is a customer perspective. So that's why I was the guy.
And you served some time on the board of Clarion, but what is it that attracted you to the housing sector?
Yeah, when I was at HomeServe, just like we got to meet on LinkedIn. I was active on LinkedIn, and I'm not someone who just sort of puts things out there and then doesn't interact with people. I genuinely like to have a conversation. And LinkedIn actually invited me to their offices, and I met the founder of LinkedIn with 10 other CEOs who all happened to be white men. And he said something that really stuck in my head, which was, you guys all have something in common, I bet. And if any of you don't have this in common, you let me know. And he's like, you're white, you're male, you had a stable place to live when you were growing up. You had someone who cared about your education. You went and got an education, at the right school, started creating a network, and then you got a job, whether you knew it or not, at the right place, which also created a larger network. And then that's led you to your role now. Now, the people in that room fought that like you won't believe, because I think they were thinking he was saying they didn't work hard, or they weren't smart, or they weren't good at what they did. He was just saying, hey, these things were laid out for you. And then if you layer on you working hard and all that stuff, then, this is one of the reasons you're here and other people aren't. And it really struck a chord with me. And I just got to thinking about what are the things that I wanted to do, at that stage in my life. So, about 10 years ago, to really, I felt I was making a difference, and I was a good person, and people liked working for me, and customers had a good deal when they worked, with me. But I was like, what are the things I'm going to focus on? And education and housing were something, that I decided to really lean into. I'd also had a few conversations with people about my kids and their life, and the fact that, I've provided them with a pretty good life, and does that make them soft, or do they not know what good value is and all that? So that was another part of it at Clarion. And it was a big deal because I was the chief exec at in a big company, and they're paying me to run that company. So I said, look, I'm going to go off, I'm going to do this, but I promise you, I will still give you as much of my time. Don't worry. And I went, and I learned a lot. I know Clarion have had their issues, but I also saw that, a lot of the people there were trying very hard to do the right things, and that it was very complex.
Yeah.
And so I left Clarion. I do a lot with charities, and I do a lot with my university in the U.S., which is Penn State. and I started an endowment there. And sort of that's kind of, you know, my two passions, education and housing. And so out of the blue, really, because I had spoken to a headhunter at the company that was looking for the chief exec for Place for People, she called me and said, "This might not make sense to you, but you know, what would you think about doing it?" Obviously, I didn't have 20 years housing experience, so you know that was, but I was familiar from, you know, HomeServe on the repair side and Clarion on the board side, seeing things. So you know, I was really intrigued. I wanted to take a look. This won't make sense because obviously people can see my salary. It was, you know, less money than the other offers I had on the table by a lot. But I was just really drawn into this really complex, what I felt could be a wonderful group that didn't have a shareholder, that could focus on trying to do the right things for society. Now, I'm genuinely a positive type of person. I can do, get done kind of person. So I always feel like I have to preface statements like that about, there was a lot to fix. There's a lot to do. There's a lot that I don't like. There's a lot that I see that we can do better. But at the same time, I think, you know, the UK would be a worse place if we weren't in it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we're as good as we can be. You know, we can be much, much better. But I do think, you know, we're a net positive to society. And then just, you know, how much more we can get that. So yeah, that's why I joined. I was really passionate. I spoke to the board. You know, that was my interview, was with the whole board, which was wild scene. And they you know, they were really interested in my general focus, which is look after your people, and then they'll look after the customers. And then you say the rest takes care of itself, but the rest takes care of itself is actually very complicated. That's the boring bit you do behind the scenes. But you know, what you really want is for your people to feel empowered to do the right things and to get out there and to, you know, to think almost like it's, if it were just them and they didn't have the big corporate behind them, what would they do? And are they empowered to do that? And that's, you know, really my ethos as a leader. And the board was really interested in that. So yeah, we gave it a go, and you know, it's been 2.5 years. It's been exhausting. You know, it's a difficult time. You know, almost as soon as I joined, everything started happening that you know about, and I was like, "Well, this is something."
Yeah.
But you know, but I wouldn't go do anything else, and they would have to drag me out of the business. Like I am 100%, you know, dedicated with every core of my body to really, you know, making us be, you know, what I think we can be.
It's great when we find a passion project that we can really sink our teeth into. And
Yeah.
you say, feel good when you go to bed after a hard day's work. One of your first initiatives with a sort of fresh pair of eyes was the white goods and flooring.
Yes.
Can you explain a bit more about that?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of people outside of social housing, whether that's as a, you know, customer, tenant, resident, or someone working in it, would be surprised by the social housing that's turned over to people.
Mm.
On one hand, it's good that something's being provided at less than market rates, and that's all great. But you know, the first time I went to, you know, we build a lot of new social housing, and the first time I went and saw one, and saw that, you know, there was laminate in the kitchen, in the bathroom, but then the rest of it was concrete, and there were no blinds. In that one, there were white goods, but I just sort of said, "Where's the rest of it? Well, you know, what's the deal?" You know, and
Mm.
I'm sort of given the story on the carpets that, well, you know, that was a new place, but in an existing place, you can't leave them in because of in contamination and all that. And I was like, that none of that adds up to me. And so, you know, we basically created a new standard on our voids, which we think is the best is that we can tell, you know, where, you know, we try to make sure that it's fit for purpose for someone who doesn't have much and who's moving in. And we try not to overdo it. If someone, you know, is moving in and they do have white goods, great, you know,
Yeah.
use your white goods. But if you don't have them, you know, we basically created a way to help customers get them, to make sure they get flooring. And then we have a national furniture project too, which is also, you know, I was with one of the trade supervisors who does voids, and he was saying how he takes good furniture out and puts it in his own garage. And then if someone needs it later, he gives it to them. And I was like, well, we need to have a better system than that, don't we? I was like, I'm glad you're on it, but I was like, we could do better. And so I don't think we've got it cracked, Ben, but we are trying, to really make sure that, the standard of the property when people move in, is good enough, especially depending on their circumstances. If someone's been homeless,
Yeah.
they're not going to have a lot of stuff, and you could give them, and we will give them a grant, and they'll have some money to buy some things. But actually, if we can provide some of the basics, then let's do it. So yeah, that's what the white goods and the flooring's about, and that's not a criticism of anyone else. That's just us trying to do the best we can do. And you'll see in our financials, we spent a lot more on repairs. Part of that is on the voids. It's about 10 million pounds to do them better. So it's not insignificant, but I
No.
think it's required. So that's kind of where we are trying to do things better and work our way through it and not waste, but then also, when someone really needs it, making sure that they can get it.
So was it you coming in and stating to me what seems quite obvious, that we should give these people flooring when they move into a home? Was the sort of backlash, well, that isn't the way we've done it in the past? Or was there a deeper misunderstanding of the needs of the resident?
I think as the sector's stretched,
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's an easy decision for people, but I do think on the flooring, especially carpets, people had gotten into the mindset of this is what we do.
Mm.
And there's reasons, and then when people like me ask, what are the reasons? So if it's an occupied void, and that's actually a bad term. So it's a home, it's an empty home. And then, we need to have someone else move in. If the carpets are good, we should find out if the next person wants them or not. We should clean them, obviously, and make sure they're, good, and not leave something that isn't. But, we don't have enough money, and the customers don't have enough money to waste and to
Yeah.
rip out flooring that someone has put in. So we just have to use a bit of common sense and trust. This is something I say all the time to my team. If you're trying to do the right thing and it goes wrong, I got you. I'm on your side. It's okay. Don't do the bare minimum to prevent an error. Actually do, what you would do if, like I said it before, and I do say this to the team all the time. If it were your business, if it were you, what would you do? And then that's what I want the team to do. And then we'll have to put controls around it and health and safety and all those things. But,
Mm.
we can do that. But at the end of the day, we just need to make sure that people, when they move in, it should be a wonderful time for someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and moving in and not having flooring and not having blinds or curtains, it's not that great.
It's
So
it's not a home without
yeah.
those. No.
And then we've been doing a lot of segmentation to look at vulnerabilities of customers. So some customers, like you, Ben, I would imagine, if I said to you, here's some money, you can pick out your own blinds and carpets, and you'd be like, great, I'm on it. Some people, that's impossible. That's an impossible task, and they would never ever be able to get it done. And so
Mm.
we need to be able to do a better job, and I do say do a better job because we're not necessarily great at recognizing those instances and helping those customers in a different way. And I think that's where the sector tried, I think, following the sort of Osborne rent cuts and all that, decided to really standardize everything and try to take decisions out and try to make it really, and in their minds, maybe that would be more efficient and it would be better overall. Well, I think it had some unintended consequences. And sometimes when you're in something, it's hard to lift your head up and go, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
A lot of the things I've done and the team that around me have done, so a lot of them have been at PFP a long time and some are new. The people on the ground, the staff, a lot of whom live in our homes, have basically said to me, wow, we're back to where we were, where this is what it was like in 1990. And I'm like, okay, well, good. I'm not precious about saying it's new. I just want it to be good.
Yeah. One of the other successes you've had, which seems to go against the sort of national trend, is that you've managed to complete 54,000 more repairs than you aim to do. How have you managed that, Greg? What's the secret behind that one?
Well, I think one of the things, and we might talk about this later, mergers and not mergers and that type of stuff, is that, compared to some in the sector, and I'm not lording this over them, I'm just saying I'm happy
Yeah.
that we are, financially stronger. And so, when I came in, one of the things that I wanted to understand was, because these big housing associations have a giant mortgage. And so it's like, okay, what's the mortgage? And what does the bank need to be happy? And then what do the ratings agencies need? What does the regulator need? And just like I spent a lot of time trying to understand all of that. And as an ex-banker, I really had this idea. I said, I can't believe that banks would want to give you billions of pounds and then you not take care of the assets. I just can't. It just
Mm.
that those two things, like if you said that to them, they would say, no, of course. But then again, some of the metrics that are common in the sector, and sometimes smaller housing associations don't have any choice on these. They have to accept them and they can't break them, or all heck breaks loose, as you've seen.
Mm.
But what I said was, well, I'm going to, if I don't have a shareholder, how far can we push it and still be on solid footing? And in my mind, there's no way that if someone needed a repair, we wouldn't try to do the repair. Now, Ben, repairs are different than asset improvements, but on a repair, we should do the repair. And I did see some evidence in the past where people were sort of deciding, well, maybe you should have that new door, but I'm not going to give you a new door because I'm managing a budget. And
Mm.
I just sort of said, look, we're going to have to, because that's a waste, because they'll have to come back eventually. I'm like, if it needs to be done, do it. And so that was the plan. And one of the other things that we did, which has really, really driven up repairs, is one, we've answered the phone. So that sounds crazy, but it's in a quick period of time, so people are not hanging up and giving up. So they are logging more complex repairs. And then also when we do the gas safety check, that he asks well, he or she will ask a few questions, and that drove about 25,000 repairs for us. So these are repairs people weren't calling us about, but that we were in the home and sort of said, hey, do you have any damp and mold? Yeah, but it's not too bad. Well, where is it? And then they take a look, because on these things, if you can get to them faster, then it's easier in the long term. And so that's internally there will be a debate of, Greg, you're driving in repairs. And I'm like, no, they're just actual repairs. They
Yeah.
were already there and they would be there next year. But actually, if we do them now, eventually, maybe we'll get through the bubble. I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying maybe. And so, and then the other thing that is that a good trend, I think, from someone who's outside the sector, is that tenants and customers are more demanding than they
Mm.
were before. And so, yeah, you read something like happened in Rochdale, and you don't want it to happen. So, you want to make sure everyone gets to you, and so we did. We are being asked to do more repairs, and then we just had a basic rule that me and my team set and my board supported me on, was we're going to do them all. Whatever. And so that meant using more contractors, which is expensive, but also, trying to grow our own team and our own capability. So we're really dedicated to that. And then the last thing we're trying to figure out now is getting the right data in place. And we're very close on this, of everything we know about the homes. And we've got surveys on about 85%. And then, using some very sophisticated data analysis to understand, if we're going to spend a lot of money updating homes next year, which we will, what's the best way to spend it, versus people with spreadsheets trying to figure it out, and really skilled people who know what they're doing, but also if you've got something the size of what we have, you know, how old it is, what it is, where it is, what age of the elements that are in the house, very complex. So
Yeah.
if you get all that data into one place and use some, you know, everyone uses the word AI. I don't know if we'll use AI, but we will use sophisticated analytics to try to determine a little better. And then I think if you get that, and you get that right, and you're preparing the right things in advance, then you listen to customers and see customers and visit customers, and then you can pick up the rest. And one of the things we've done that hasn't really had as big an impact as I wanted to have yet is we have put 20% more staff back out in the neighborhoods as housing officers. We've reduced the patch size. I want people to see customers more, to be more visible, for people to know who that person is, who is their, you know, lifeline with the housing association. And so we're in transition on that. We're not done, but we have hired all the people and we've done the new patches, and now we're working on better technology and sort of the rules of how that will work now that, you know, because you know this, that the people are so stretched, they were, that they get a couple antisocial behavior cases that are serious and, you know, concerning safeguarding, and then all of a sudden, you know, very quiet customers are just left
Yeah.
because dealing with all this. And so, you know, we're trying to find a way to really make it so that people, you know who they're dealing with, and that the people that they're dealing with are not under so much pressure to do so much, that they can spend a little time having the right conversations with people.
I'm a big advocate for getting feet back on the ground and having people in the communities that they serve. And the housing officer, I think, is a great way of finding people who are dedicated and passionate about housing, so they can then grow within the business and have a career in housing. So I'm always a big advocate for that. Something else that you've got going is the apprenticeship scheme to help, I'm assuming, to help with your repairs and to help grow that team. How's that been going?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy that we've had a change in government that is, and that's not about politics. It's just about, we've got a government now that's talking about we need to do better with housing. You know,
Mm.
I haven't seen the answers, but they're talking about it, which is good. You know, I spent a long time hearing someone not talk about it or blame others, you know, and it was like, okay, this is a societal issue. We need some help. You know, I think any housing association that's sort of like, oh, we'll sort it, it's like, you're crazy. And so one of the things we need, and that people are quiet about, and I'm sure Brexit hasn't helped, but that's not the only thing, is there just aren't enough tradespeople. So it's very hard to get work done, and it's very hard to hire the right people. And so I, you know, when I think about what I'm trying to do, and what, you know, the board has empowered me to, and the strategy we've agreed, which is to really, you know, Basil Jericho, who founded St. Pancras Housing, which is now part of us as Origin, 100 years ago, said housing is not enough. And that's true. And one of the parts of it that were, you know, it's not enough is on education and employment. You need to have a good community. You need to have those things. So part of the reason that we're doing is, one, we need the tradespeople. Great, perfect. And then two, if I can get people in my community who, you know, want to be trained, and who would like to be a plumber, or, you know, a technician in the IT team or whatever, you know, so we're going to do all types of apprenticeships. Then great, you know, ideally, you know, who better to look after a community than people who live in the community? So that, to me, is the perfect storm. Now, is that going to be easy? No. You know, we're going to have to really be, you know, focused on it and stick with it and be patient. But we have already decided some things which are different, like our apprentices will be paid the real living wage, which is not what apprentices are paid. You know, so that they can they can live their life. And you know, we're really excited about it. And we you know, I think if you saw the press release, the idea is that others use this academy too, that especially smaller housing associations who just don't have the size. The big ones will take care of themselves, but the smaller players can use it. And we can be, my whole shtick since I joined was, I'm not competing with any housing associations. I'm competing with homelessness. And so, if we can help smaller local community-based housing associations with training people for them, then great. That would, what a great idea or outcome. I mean, and so yeah, it'll be a charity, and we will run it like a charity and try to use people's apprenticeship levies. And if we can't do that, we'll try to get other funding into it. And then, like I said, our own apprentices, which there will be quite a few, we will pay the real living wage. And at my last place, when we had an academy, which we started, so I've got some experience with it. I remember it was very sad one time. We put out for apprentices, and we had 1,000 young people apply, and we only had 10 spots.
Yeah.
So destroying, and then trying to go through 1,000, and pick out, here's the 10. You get this career and this education and this leg up in life, and you other 990 keep looking. So as a society, it's something people really, really want. Young people, they really want the opportunity. They just can't find the spots. So we know that this. I think this is a first. Obviously, we need to take care of our existing homes. That's always top priority. But this, to me, is a big statement of intent by us that, we're going to use our size to help other people, and we're going to be part of the solution.
And university isn't for everyone, and especially, guys and girls that want to get out there with their hands and fix things. Apprenticeships are the way forward. And yeah, I'm a big fan of apprenticeship. And I went through a youth training scheme, as it was called back in the early 90s. Because education wasn't for me. It was about getting out there and doing it. And it mixed that education, that qualification with a job that I enjoyed doing.
I loved my education. And then sometimes, honestly, when I was still paying for it in my late 40s, I was like, if I had just gone on to work, I'd be just as far. I wouldn't know this mortgage-sized loan. But anyway, that by the by. But like I said, it's not for everybody. And an apprenticeship and it is a great way. And there are just a lot of people who, I'm really close to frontline guys, and people come to work for us who are tradespeople because they don't want to be an entrepreneur. They don't want to have to drive in business, and they just want to fix stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how their mind works, and they love it, and they enjoy it, and they just want a good van, the right tools, and to be able to go out and fix things. And yeah, what a great life if that's you go home and you at the end of the day and you think, how many people did you help that day with something that, I've been there when there's a leak or something, especially if it's a vulnerable customer, they are terrified. They are, and I've watched that, the plumber fix it, and they're like, oh, wow, you're amazing. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. A toilet that flushes, such a simple thing. And yeah, it's a major thing. There's lots of great stuff happening, Greg, and it's great to hear about a lot of this thing. But obviously there are some detractors, and there are a couple of Facebook groups. What sort of message do you have for those guys who aren't seeing the results yet that you're driving?
Well, I think I guess my message is we're trying to get better every day. And so there will always be people who are not happy, and there will always be things that aren't right. But guess what I'm trying to do, and I know most of the people in the group are trying to do now, is if you see something, you own it and you fix it and you sort it and you kind of get on with it. There will always be, especially on asset improvement, it's a very difficult balance, in that I can't spend £1 billion this year to fix everything. I just don't have it. And I've got to really prioritize things and really look. What I would like to have happen in the future is use that data that we talked about. And for someone, to be able to look and sort of see, I'm due a new kitchen in a couple of years. And, that makes sense, versus does anyone know what's going on with my kitchen, or am I part of the plans, or, whatever. So, but yeah, we get complaints like everyone else. I think, the ombudsman is as you know, an aggressive ombudsman. And, we're, I think, well, they've told me we're not on their, bad list. We're just on the list of we've got issues. And so, yeah, every person who writes to me, I read it. That doesn't mean I respond to everyone, because, if I get 5 a day and I get into a conversation, I'll have 150 of them by the end of the month and I'll never get through it. But if I do see something that is particularly not good, I will respond and say, we'll sort it. And I will go see customers, and I have, just saw one yesterday as part of what I do. I don't hide. And we met through LinkedIn, and a lot of times I will see someone connect with me and I'll see their name. There'll be no job. There'll be no followers. And I know as soon as I accept, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get a message saying, you're terrible and it's disgusting. And guess what? But I do accept it, and I take the message. And then every single time I say, here's my email address, send me the details, and I will make sure it gets sorted. And I do have, besides the big business has lots of people who sort things, I have a very small group of people who help me, look after things when I see something and I'm like, well, this really isn't good. We need to really focus on this. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to do. I think, as there's, what will we do? Over 250,000 repairs. That means we'll be at someone's house 3 times a year on average.
Yeah.
So I think we are willing, and and then we just need to do a better job in the future of making sure that we get those asset improvements in the right spot. This year we will spend about 150 million on asset improvements, which is a lot of money and a scary amount of money, but we're big, and then we just need to make sure we spend it in the right places. And I'm very pleased that that's going to plan. And that sounds a weird thing to say, but it's actually hard to get the work lined up and to get it done on, if you're putting roofs on, or you're putting windows in, or you're putting solar panels, or in Clayton Brook, where there's a big Facebook group, we're spending millions and millions putting in new kitchens and all that. And we have a lady named Karen there who contacted me, who said, this is a nightmare. And, and I said to my team, okay, we're spending millions to try to make it better, and now the customer tells me it's a nightmare. Like, we've not done something right, because this should be good news.
Yeah.
I get it. I've had a kitchen done in my house. It is unpleasant while it's happening, but it should be, not a nightmare that you contact the CEO.
Yeah.
And so we put a new process in place, and a new way of engaging with those customers in Clayton Brook. And I've been told it's better, but I'm sure there's someone there out of the 800 homes who has had a bad experience. But the one thing you would get with me, if you do contact me, something will happen.
Well, Greg, we're running out of time, and it's great to hear your fresh approach. And I believe in a fresh pair of eyes can come in, and we get very locked in as to where we are. And that fresh pair of eyes can come in and say, why aren't we doing it this way? And that's often what's needed. Just for the sake of openness, you and I met because we had a disagreement over Twitter accounts, or X as we should call it now. And what I really liked was that we both said, well, we're not going to agree on this, but that doesn't stop us from communicating.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
honestly,
it.
I said it to you, and I wasn't BSing. I understand your point of view, and I just had a different one. And if I did think that customers couldn't reach us, I never would have done it. But I do think there are other ways, and we didn't, for whatever reason, that wasn't a channel with us that customers flocked to, for who knows why. And like you said, there's Facebook groups, but you can believe me, I've put my email address out there enough that customers know how to reach me.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I put my email address out there, and I get loads of traffic, and I try to respond to all of them. And I know how difficult it is, and I'm not getting anywhere near the traffic that you are. Greg, thanks very much indeed. Look, by talking together, we take a step closer to working together, and it's great. And I'm really, really pleased. So thank you very much indeed for your time today, and keep up the great work. Let's catch up again in a year and see how things are going. Hey?
Yeah, I think we're both working, from different directions, probably towards the same result. So yeah, that's why it's good to talk.
All right. Thanks very much, Greg. Take care.
Yes, bye.
Thank you for listening to the Housing Sector podcast. If you found this episode insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe and share.